It's really important in case you are not speaking to turn off your mic, just to avoid any kind of unexpected background noise. I think this is going to be really helpful as well. And Rafi, I'm going to be sharing with you the link to Facebook once I receive it. But I think you can find it as well on the Anna Lynn Foundation's Facebook page. I think it has been shared there.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this fourth public virtual dialogue in the framework of the virtual marathon of the Anna Lynn Foundation. My name is Essam Ben Aissa, and I will be moderating today's public session. As usual, at the very beginning, a kind reminder to our audience on Zoom that simultaneous translation in Arabic and in French are available. So just click on the globe sign on Zoom and choose the right channel. Pour notre audience francophone sur Zoom, ce dialogue sera interprété en français et en arabe. Donc si vous préférez l'écouter, le suivre en français, veuillez cliquer sur le signe du globe en bas et choisir le bon canal. ولمتابعينا باللغة العربية أكيد إن كنتم تودون متابعة هذا الويبينار، هذا الحوار باللغة العربية، يرجى فقط الضغط على زر الكرة الأرضية واختيار الترجمة الفورية باللغة العربية. So back to our dialogue today, as I said, organized by the Anna Lindh Foundation in the framework of the Marathon of Dialogue. So the Marathon of Dialogue, this is our fourth public dialogue, which is aiming at gathering activities of the Anna Lindh Foundation Civil Society Network and partner organizations, which is taking place during 42 days. Today we are halfway, the 21st day, and this from the 19th of May, that was our very first event, until the 29th of June. So there's a variety of events that are happening in public like this one, but also other events that are being conducted by the members of the Anna Lynn Foundation network. The objective of the virtual marathon is to highlight the importance of the intercultural dialogue in building sustainable societies across the Euromed regions, but taking also into consideration the challenges and the opportunities that were brought up during the pandemic that we are witnessing now, the COVID-19 pandemic. So there will be a rich programming happening now and until the 29th of June, run by the Anna Lynn Foundation Network. So today, as I mentioned, is the fourth dialogue, the fourth public dialogue, which will be around the following theme: arts and education for intercultural cities, local platforms for dialogue. We've discussed in the previous weeks other themes related to digital threats and opportunities, to climate change, to media and youth. And today, as I mentioned, the theme is around arts and education for intercultural cities. As you know, investing in arts as a tool to break down the cultural barriers is at the heart of the Anna Lynn Foundation's mandate. This is corroborated by the Anna Lynn Foundation Intercultural Trend Survey of 2020 that draws some attention towards the importance of civil society initiatives to encourage artistic expression and multicultural events, which are considered as being effective in promoting diversity management. As we also know, access to culture and art could be provided by education. This synergy between education and art and culture as well is revealed by the Anna Lynn Foundation survey of 2020, as a majority of respondents in Europe and the southern and eastern Mediterranean countries see that schools, for example, are places where children learn to live in diversity. We're going to be going through more details about the findings of this survey, which will be presented soon. But regarding our dialogue, we have as well a number of panelists, and we're going to be discussing four major questions. The first one is related is to explore in which ways policymakers can build on the virtual artistic exchanges and positive local community responses that have emerged during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, for a better together in the post-COVID-19 era. We're going to be as well exploring ways in which intercultural education can be developed and mainstreamed in curricula in both formal and non-formal education. We're going to be as well addressing the points of policy approach that is required to be developed to design a Euromed model for intercultural cities. And we will as well address the question on the good practices from across the Mediterranean, the Euro-Mediterranean region, for dialogue in the education and art field at the city level that can be shared and scaled up for sustainable development across the Euro-Mediterranean societies. I would like at the very beginning to thank our panelists who are joining us today, and also our institutional representatives. So we have from the Anna Lynn Foundation, Ms. Eleonora Insalaco, who is the Head of Operations and Intercultural Research. As panelists, we have Mr. Ayman Bouazizi from Tunisia, who's program manager at Youth-ion. We have as well Pierres McHenry, who is lecturer in the Department of Geography at the University of College of Cork, Ireland. We have Monica Salas Corrigan, who is president of Equalitas Association in Portugal. We have Rafi Ferrali, who is a theater maker and peace building consultant from Beirut, Lebanon. We have also from Cyprus, Loitzas Lokaides, who is Director of Association for Historical Dialogue and Research. We have also Andy Rebiai, who is Executive Director of Youth Voice Network of Organizations in Albania. We have from Italy Federico Grandesso, who is journalist and board member of the Fellini Foundation for Cinema. And we have as well Professor Karl Donnert, who is the president of the European Association of Geographers in Belgium. So as you can hear, really, I mean, a good number as well of panelists from different countries. So we hope that we're going to be having a good dialogue with different perspectives with also different recommendations. Before starting our dialogue, I just want to remind some of the rules and the structure as well of the discussion. So we're going to be having two panels. So the first one going to be addressing some of the questions that I just presented, and then we're going to move into the second panel with 4 speakers addressing the other questions, 2 other questions of the 4 questions that we have in the framework, before moving to an important part in which you as audience, you can interact with us from now. I mean, from the very first speech that you're going to be hearing, you can send your remarks, your questions, your comments, and the panelists are going to be able as well to answer them, to interact with you. So please, in case you have questions, do not hesitate to type them either on Zoom or in case you are following us as well on Facebook Live. So make sure you send comments, and we're going to be addressing those questions to the panelists. So this dialogue is going to be lasting 2 hours. We're going to be having inputs from panelists. We're going to be having as well your questions in a very interactive as well way. As I said at the very beginning, there is simultaneous translation in French and in Arabic, in addition to the English one that we're having right now. So this is more or less the main rules that we're having basically for today. So I encourage you again to send your questions or to share as well the link on Zoom. Perhaps you have as well some colleagues, some friends who might be as well interested to watch, so do not hesitate to make it. And without further ado, I would like to start our discussion with some welcoming remarks from the Lynn Foundation. I would like to invite Ms. Eleonora Insalaco, who is the Head of Operations and Intercultural Research at the Lynn Foundation, for her welcoming points. Please.
Thank you, Aysam. Good afternoon, dear panelists, dear heads of network members, and all the people that are watching from across the region and is watching and participating to this virtual dialogue on the topic of arts and education in intercultural cities. I believe that before entering into the discussion of on the focus of today, I would like to really encourage you to have a look at the rich program of activities that network members and heads of network are organizing on a daily basis for the virtual marathon for dialogue. I just also before joining this meeting, I was having a look at what was happening yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and there is really a big offer from organizations in different countries of the region and on different topics. So I can already summarize for you that there were activities for civil society empowerment, gender equality, fight against racism, and dialogue between the migrants and host communities. This is just from a very, very quick look at this, just 3 days. So please have a look, because the virtual marathon wants to have also the objective of opening up the conversations on topics that are very relevant to intercultural dialogue, and that they have different perspectives from different communities of the Euro-Mediterranean region. Now, just entering a bit more on the topic of today, so intercultural cities and cities. At the Lynn Foundation, we have seen in the past years and until now how much cities are considered, are emerging as laboratories for intercultural dialogue and diversity management. This is emerging from all the consultations that we've had with our networks, with our advisory council, and also from the research work we carried out, and not least also from the analysis of of the activities that are proposed also in the framework of the virtual marathon for dialogue. It appears how much the local dimension is important, is central also for the implementation of international projects. So it is at the local level that we can have sustainable practices that can lead to change and the transformation of attitudes and behaviors, because this is a work that requires time and the full engagement and the continuous work with people. So it is so important to work at the level of the community and with the different actors that are to be engaged at the community level. So it is not only civil society, it is not only municipalities, it is not only educators or artists, it's everybody together. It's also the media. So it is very important when we speak about dialogue and work for dialogue at the local level to speak about a systemic approach that takes into consideration all the actors involved and in which way each one can bring its contribution to support this change, this transformation at the individual and the group level. I would just like to share with you also some data that Sam had anticipated from our most recent research that actually gives scientific evidence to what we are sharing today and to the importance that cities have for the promotion of intercultural dialogue and also to the openness that people have to cultural diversity. We believe that one objective of our research is sometimes also to counter stereotypes that are promoted in the media. And so from our research, what is emerging is that the vast majority of people, north, south, east, and west of the Mediterranean, are consider that equal opportunities and rights have to be recognized to minority groups inside their societies. That the cultural diversity is a source for prosperity. So there is this also direct link between diversity, religious and cultural diversity, and economic growth and prosperity of a society that is recognized by the people of the different countries of the region. Of course, there is also a minority, but a relevant minority that is also fearing this diversity. We have 28% of Europeans and 45% of people on the southern and eastern shore of the Mediterranean that consider cultural and religious diversity also as a potential threat to the social stability. But we need to take this into consideration, not to consider this as an element to stop our pursuit for integration and dialogue work at the local level. Also, the investment at the city level emerges from other data that we have collected. When asking people what do you consider being the most effective measures to promote better living together, and here we see local authorities and civil society actors as driving actors and forces to lead this better living in multicultural societies. So we have 89% of Europeans and 90% of southern and eastern Mediterranean strongly pleading for an increased role of municipalities and civil society to lead this change. And then we see how much it is important investment in education, arts, for better living together in multicultural societies, with percentages of between 80 and 90% of Euromed populations telling us how it is important to invest in these tools. There is also another element I wanted to share, that is how much it is important also to allow the expression of cultural and religious diversity in the public place for a majority of people also around the Mediterranean, and as a vector for better living in multicultural society. Again, here we see with this slide that education, empowerment also of young people, multicultural events and artistic exchanges are important, also considered important by a vast majority of people to prevent radicalization, hate speech, and polarization in society. This is just to give you a hint that what is emerging from our conversations is also backed up by scientific data that we have collected in 2020, but that are grounded in, let's say, 12, 13 years of regular research we carried out. I would like to share with you, I mean, we are very well aware that diversity projects for dialogue exist at the local level. There are different good practices, these different policies that are implemented by cities north and south of the Mediterranean, and that we, as an Lynn Foundation, we are planning to launch a new initiative, and I would like to take this opportunity to make this announcement, an initiative that is for the establishment of the Euromed Capital for Dialogue Award. This is an award that we are going to launch in the coming weeks, and it is actually an award to recognizing already in 2021 two cities, ideally one from Europe and one from the southern and eastern Mediterranean, that can share, that already have implemented good practices, both at the operational and policy level, for dialogue, what we call dialogue and diversity management. Of course, they can take different shapes. The idea is to encourage with this award also the knowledge about these practices that exist, to encourage more cities, more municipalities to invest in this work for dialogue. And to reward somehow the good efforts that are already made. And at the same time, of course, we will further support our civil society network for their activities that are so important at the local level. So at the same time, there would be also a call for civil society activities that can, again, emphasize the dialogue work at the local level. I wanted just to conclude with these two announcements because are central for our program, and they really show the attention and the importance that we recognize to this work at the city level. So today we will hear about arts education from specialists and practitioners in the field that already will give us different ideas on good practices and that exist. So I thank you, and I wish you all a pleasant conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleonora Insalaco, Head of Operations and Intercultural Research at the Anna Lynn Foundation. Good reminder as well of the importance of cultural diversity in the region to create prosperity, and a great as well announcement on the new award from the Anna Lynn Foundation, the Euromed Capital of Dialogue Award. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So thanks. Without further ado, I'd like to start actually our dialogue with our panelists. Now, starting with the first panel, which includes Ayman from Tunisia, Pierres from Ireland, Monica from Portugal, and Rafi from Lebanon. And let me start perhaps from Tunisia with an educator. So Ayman, you are program manager at Youth-ion, but you are also a community builder and activist working on youth empowerment through non-formal education and exchange. My question to you to kick off this discussion is very simple. In which way you think that we can create social cohesion and promote mutual understanding through intercultural education?
Okay, thank you so much, Aisa, for this amazing presentation. And let me start my speech by asking a question. Do you know how many NGOs we have in Tunisia? We have 24,000 NGOs were created after 2011. Only 5,000 are still active. Almost 20 organizations are working on education and exchange programs with their European peers, either under Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps. This number is still low if we are seeking more cooperations, more cultural exchange, more openness, and more peace-building operations between countries. I am working in a youth-led organization called Youth-ion, which focuses on youth empowerment through non-academic education, like you mentioned before. Inside Youth-ion, we believe that formal education only can provide youth the opportunity of personal development and the needed soft skills which help them to be active citizens in their communities. So what's the solution? The solution is inside the non-academic approach with our work inside non-governmental organizations. That's why I want to highlight the crucial role of NGOs in building strong communities and peaceful ones by providing a spectrum of programs that help youth to grow up and play a constructive role inside their societies. Since 2019, we have provided youth 9 exchange programs under Erasmus Plus and ESC. Currently, we have 6 youth workers participating in different programs, long-term ones. As previous exchange participant in different training courses, I experienced a different culture, which helped me to understand myself and those around me. It was a life journey to deeper connection with people. I learned how to embrace diversity, how to to build connection with different people from different backgrounds, from different religions. And actually, it was amazing. We can live together in peace, indeed. Like we deepen, I deepen like my knowledge of foreign cultures, strengthen international relations, and make lasting connections with people. Like I learned how to embrace diversity, like I mentioned before. And like now I see that we can support each other. We can still learn. We're still capable of building connections in the Euromed diaspora or even across the world by launching a lot of exchange programs, like I mentioned before. We are living in the era of technology, which is an effective tool to fill the gap between nations and to make us become closer than even before. Like during the pandemic, for example, we carried on working inside our organization, and personally, I participated in several virtual exchange programs. It went amazing. It gives me access to many opportunity to enhance my career, to network, and to be a good ambassador for my country. Now, I am working on a public policy brief, like to give recommendation for decision makers and to make them look back and work more with the third sector organizations in the field of education and culture. We need more awareness and more support from them. Finally, I call NGOs in the diaspora, like the Euromed region, like to enhance our work, to collaborate together, to enhance our connection and international relations, and to spread our cause for the sake of cultural connection and peace building. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayman. I think the points were really clear and really good. I mean, the impact basically of intercultural education on you and as well on the youth around you. But I want to focus maybe on one point when you mentioned the soft skills, and then you actually gave a kind of an introduction to that through the use of technology and virtual exchange. Could you give us maybe in 30 seconds to 1 minute, maybe some concrete examples on some of the methodologies that you were engaged in which technology or new technologies, new methods have been used?
Yeah, sure. Last October, I participated in a virtual exchange program provided by Solia program, and we were participating.
Hello, Ayman, can you hear me? I think we just lost Ayman, but thank you very much, Ayman, for that. In case you are able to hear us, he was highlighting basically the points of or his experience with the virtual exchange with the organization of Solia. So thanks for that. We're moving from Tunisia to Ireland, and I would like to invite Mr. Piaris McHenry, who is lecturer and in Department of Geography at the University of Cork, but who has been as well researching and publishing extensively on migration and integration issues. And you're also former, I think I'm having some background noise, but yeah, it's got solved. So I was saying, Mr. Piaris McHenry, you're also a former Irish diplomat who've been actively involved in asylum, immigration, and integration issues in Cork City. So my question to you, when you speak about integration of migrants and asylum seekers in host communities using education and arts, to which extent also does the process, this process of integration depend on the local policies that exist there?
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Because I lost signal 5 minutes ago from our last speaker. So if it disappears this time again, I apologize in advance First of all, I'm very happy to be here and thank you for inviting me, especially when we use that word Euromed, because it reminds me of some of my favorite countries, especially Lebanon, where I lived for some years in the 1980s. I suppose my theme, and in response to your question, would be when we speak about the local response, the first point is a very simple one. It's about how to enable people to get to know each other, because it's only when you can create that dialogue that you can really have the beginnings of understanding. And the one point I would like to make is that I've been involved for a long time myself in NGOs, and I have been involved as an activist. I'm the kind of person that goes into organizations and rolls up my sleeves. I think there are always good people like, and they are the most necessary people in some ways, but most of us, if we are honest, we're
Mr. McHenry, I think we're having or you're having a tiny issue with the audio. If you could perhaps turn off your camera, we hope that with this your audio will get clearer. Mr. McHenry, can you hear me? So I still can see Mr. Pierre McHenry in the panel. I think he's back now. Can you hear me now, Mr. McHenry?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, so I was suggesting basically if you could turn off the camera, perhaps the quality of your audio will increase.
Okay, is that better?
I guess so,
Can you hear me? Okay, apologies. The point I was going to make is that only a certain percentage of the population will become involved as activists in those. And we need to ask ourselves how to the rest of the population.
Sorry, Mr. McHenry, we're still having difficulty to hear you. So perhaps if you could turn off the camera, I think this would be helpful because we still can see your image. So I'm not sure if as well the tech team could assist us in trying to turn off perhaps the camera to have the audio.
I have turned it on now.
Okay, so could you please try again?
Right, so you can hear me now.
Yes, I do.
Okay, I was just making the point that the majority of any population will not become activists or they will not join NGOs. So the question is, how do we reach those people? How do we create a dialogue between that ordinary population, which is maybe not politically minded, does not want big words like intercultural dialogue. They're not interested in that. They just want to live their lives. And how do we involve them with new communities so that we create a dialogue which is meaningful? So for people around this table, we are all activists, we are all interested, we are all committed.
So I think we lost Mr. McHenry, but I think he was making a very important point on the role also of those ordinary people who are there, who do not perhaps relate that much to the big NGOs or to the terms of experts or consultants or.
This is really not.
Yeah,
this is not working so well. Maybe we should just give a stable condition.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McHenry. I hope that the so I'm receiving a message from the tech team saying that it's difficult for the interpreters as well to translate it. But let's perhaps try at some point again with you in case the tech team as well could help you improve the quality. But thanks a lot. I think we got that point on the role of the ordinary as well people. But let me move now to Portugal, to Monica, who is the president of an association called Equalitas. Who is also project coordinator, trainer, and fundraiser. So my question to you, Monica, is what are some of the possible actions to strengthen the use of arts and education in social transformations in Portugal, but perhaps as well with a Euro-Mediterranean perspective?
Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for your question, and thanks to everybody and all representatives from the Lynn Foundation for inviting me here. As I can see, like the panelists are falling one by one. I hope I can finalize my speech here. But yeah, actually, the topics are being really interesting. And in my organization, like Qualitas, we work in Lisbon, and one of our main topics or our main methodologies to achieve young people is through arts, because we really believe like arts are an essential part of our culture, and culture is essential for the development of a society. It's actually we see it as a tool of transformation, of social transformation, because we can achieve economic development, we can achieve social development, and even democratic development through through this if we follow this way, like boosting arts and culture in a society. How do we do it? As we all know, yeah, we're living in societies that are very multicultural. I know it is. We all have different realities in both shores of the Mediterranean, but here in Portugal, we can see a lot of young people coming from African countries, from Latin American countries, that they are Portuguese already, but yeah, they need to know their history, and we really need to consider. Uh, of course that we are all equal as human beings, but of course we need to see this diversity. We need to be aware of it, and we need to value all these factors that makes us unique, as individuals. And what happens with art is that we can achieve like everybody. This is like there's no filter, there's nothing that someone cannot access. You don't have to be an artist. Actually, this is also one of our main principles. It's like we can do theater, we don't have to be actors, we can make music, and we don't have to be musicians. We just have to boost our creativity. So also through creativity, this is very interesting, because creativity is an essential part of arts, and this also provides mental health, right? um, this is a way of promoting health in not only in young people. It's true that we mostly work with young people as well, but I guess this could be applied to anyone. So answering your question and being like very practical with this, and what kind of activities do we do to use arts? We of course, as also Ayman was saying, from Tunisia and everything, we make the most of the Erasmus plus fundings and the Solidarity Corps. Even the Anna Lynn Foundation, they always launch very interesting proposals to develop these activities. So we create solidarity projects. We develop also international youth exchanges, or even training courses for educators or youth workers. And for example, we were last year we were using poetry, for example, and we were tackling hate speech through poetry, because we reunited groups of local young people and also immigrants, or even second generation migrants that live in like the most disadvantaged neighborhoods of Lisbon. And we were working through several months on how to express ourselves in different ways, like finding a way to express our emotions, our needs, but
And do you
always
have
avoiding.
do you have some
Tell me.
concrete examples on how basically those amazing activities have impacted those targeted people? I mean, what impact basically was seen by you and by
So
your
exactly, the impact was amazing. As you know, sometimes we have this tangible outcomes which are really easy to detect. But for me, the most important are those intangible outcomes. So this is like the change on behaviors of these young people. They were when they wanted to express that they were angry, or they were not feeling integrated in society. They were able to analyze their own emotions and express themselves, and share ideas with other people that they thought before they were only going to argue with, maybe, or start a conflict. But we could see that these conflicts were really decreasing. The communication skills really improved. We also developed some, apart from poetry, we also use like corporal expression. This is also really important because they learn how to interact with each other. They really learn their own potential, and they knew how to put all their best, you know, to express their potential and their emotions in a very healthy way. And you see solidarity in the neighborhood, which is because now they work together, you know, they have these moments where they can express themselves and they can really be free, and they know they are different, but this is enriching, and they are curious about the other, which is one of the most important things that we should achieve.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. This is kind of a good as well concrete example on the impact of arts, as you mentioned, on decreasing the conflicts, but also in improving the communication skills between different communities. Thanks for that. We're going to be moving to another expert as well working on arts, but on the other side of the Mediterranean in Beirut. So we're going to be, I would like to invite Rafi Ferrali, who's, as I mentioned, theater maker and peace building consultant in Beirut, has also performer, and he's acted in more than 100 or in hundreds of performances in all over Lebanon, the Arab world, Europe, and the USA. My question to you is very related as well to what Monica mentioned, Rafi. So what does basically art bring to education, and what does as also education brings to arts, both in order for them to empower interculturality in cities in Lebanon, but also across the region?
It's thank you for the question, and I'm very happy to be here. First of all, I think the most important thing before we touch upon what art and education bring to each other is to also have a different approach into art and integrating it in what we do. For a long time, it's been very exciting and very hip to bring art into our projects. It makes things accessible for youth. It makes things beautiful and creative, and for so many reasons that we all know. However, there is a new approach. There is a new way of thinking about art. It's not new in itself, but our approach to it is new, and it is not just using art as a tool, but making art as a necessary approach and methodology and technique to education. Looking at what art can bring that nothing else brings, and not just, you know, education is going on normally and we just bring in art as a tool or as something that adds spices to whatever we're doing. It's not that approach. It's more of art is bringing something that is so necessary that education does not work without it. So this is the backbone of my answer to your question. And now to move to my answer, I think the first thing is when we look at what art brings to education, there are so many things. I will just choose 2 or 3 things to start with, and then maybe if other questions trigger other things, I can also share them. The first thing that we talk about is the liminality, this liminal space that very, very few other mediums can bring into education. A liminal space in which we are overlapping reality and imagination at the same time. And this is creating a third space that we also call a third space, where it is 100% real, but 100% imaginary as well. And this creates some sort of a laboratory where we can experiment and try things, and without a lot to lose. And then whatever works, we take it with us back to reality, and whatever doesn't work, we can leave it back. So this liminality is a very important thing that art brings to education that I think no other thing can also bring to education. Another thing is an approach of, I think also Monica was talking about this, the approach of low skill but high sensitivity. You know, when we don't need to be artists, when we don't have the pressure of creating our finest work, we're just taking this any skill we have and just using it for the sake of expression, for the sake of getting in touch with our sensitivity, and also something that not easily and not usually found in other mediums. And finally, the multi-modality of art, I'd like to say, is something that triggers multiple parts of our brain, going from, for example, poetry into music, into dance, into painting, into theater. Jumping between these multi-modalities have proven to be able to trigger parts of the brain that a normal normal cognitive educational process does not trigger. If I sit here and talk to you about something or give you an exercise or use any other learning methodology, if I am not jumping between these different parts of our brain, then we are really lacking a lot. And this thing that is lacking seems to be only present when we bring the arts into the equation. I will stop at this, but I will just, I think my time is also up, right?
I've got a second question actually for you. Really important point that you mentioned now, but you've been, I mean, I can see in your biography that you've been offering as well training and coaching on various soft skills using improvisation in theater and also storytelling. So my question to you, perhaps, what are some of the good practices, I mean, from your experience, and you've been performing as well and working in different regions, what do you think are some of the good practices for dialogue through arts, through theater as well, storytelling, that can be shared or scaled up across the Euro-Mediterranean region?
There is a lot. But I think the most important thing is when we are doing dialogue, when we are approaching a certain community with arts, it's very important that we come from the community. So we use their stories, we use their realities instead of coming with our own realities. And this is very difficult. It's much easier said than done, especially for artists, because an artist spends a lot of time preparing their work and comes with that work to the community and hopes that this work will change this community or will have a very strong impact on this community. To tell an artist to come, like a tabula rasa, to come like a plain paper and be in the service of the community and tell the community, so here I am, do whatever you want with me. This is very scary for the artist, but unfortunately, this is the only way or one of the best practices, as you call them, Aysam, for an impact to happen in the community, to come and offer myself, offer my art, offer my work without any fear about the quality, without any fear about what I'm offering, and telling them, this is what I have to offer, and let us see what your story is. Let us see what your reality is. Let us start from that and see where we can take it. So I think so many good practices can be extracted from just this approach, from going to a community and saying and believing that they have what it takes. They are experts and not me. So this is the best practice that I have to share.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rafi. We're going to be exploring basically what the other panelists in this first block as well think. They will be able as well to engage with you. But I can see that PRS is back. So PRS, let's give it maybe another try. I hope that your internet connection now is more stable. You've been mentioning a point that I highlighted as well on the ordinary people and the work that they are doing on the ground. So perhaps you could continue in this direction.
Yeah, I'm almost embarrassed now, but I will try once more. I was saying that as well as the activists and the politically minded people, how do you reach the silent majority? And in a country like Ireland as well, maybe we're a bit different. We have traditionally been a country of emigrants, not immigrants. So we went other places, people were not coming here. Now that has all changed. So we have maybe 14% of our population here in my city of Cork, for instance, were born outside Ireland. And we have a population which was quite conservative, facing this entirely new challenge. Who are these people? And then many of these people are themselves staying in very isolated institutional conditions, because for us, asylum seekers stay in a place called direct provision. These are large buildings, usually away from the city. They are privately controlled, and those people, it's not apartheid, but it feels like that because they are cut off from society. So the challenge is how to create channels which connect people. And cities are where this happens. Cities are where you meet people face to face, you get to know them, and you overcome those barriers. So for us, some of the very simplest things are the most successful. The most successful project of all has been something called the Sanctuary Runners. Sanctuary because we want to see ourselves as a city of sanctuary. And all we do with the runners is people come together from direct provision centres, asylum seekers, other migrants and local people, and they run. They run marathons, they run short races, children run, adults run, and it has been an extraordinary success. We now have 25 of these running clubs. And of course, people are now raising money to get the running shoes and the the clothes and so on. And it has just been a runaway success, no pun intended. So that's a simple thing. Another example would be food. We all like food from everywhere, right? So during the lockdown last year in Ireland with the pandemic, we had a series of virtual cookery classes. So we learned about Algerian food, Tunisian food, Zimbabwean food, Bosnian food, and many people signed on for these classes. They started talking, they got to know each other, they started cooking. So for instance, now one of the most successful restaurants here in Cork is Palestinian. And those people came here first as asylum seekers. They became part of this community, and now everyone goes to their restaurant. So again, those very simple things, food and running. A third one, of course, is art. So we have an art gallery on my campus, and they have organized a special program for asylum-seeking children. And again, the first thing to do is to create a space where they can express themselves and they can talk about their sense of isolation, of the loss of their homeland, of the search for identity. But then we also put them in touch with other children, with art teachers, with people from the university. There are a lot of students involved. So these are very simple measures, but in all cases, they're designed to kind of to reach beyond that space that we think of as being, the political one. The NGOs, the organized people like all of us here. You have to reach also the ordinary person in the street and to connect them with the new migrants who have arrived and will be part of our society. That's really the main point I want to make. I'm sorry for the technical problems.
I think it's okay. We are pleased right now. I mean, that things are working and that we could hear as well really, really important points from your side. Thanks a lot. We hope as well that in a minute you will be able to react to what Monica and Rafi mentioned. We unfortunately lost Ayman. He just informed us that he is having a technical issue as well. He might be joining as well at some point. But let me get back to Monica first, reacting perhaps to what you just heard from PRS, but also from Rafi. So Rafi, he mentioned one point, for example, on the importance of starting from the community, from a reality. That was a really important. And PRS just mentioned as well another point on those small actions and their kind of impact that are sometimes overlooked, but they have actually a big impact. So do you have any follow-up reactions on those points or any other point that you think are relevant?
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't really agree more with both of them actually, and even with Ayman said as well at the beginning. Well, following maybe some of Rafi's points that were really interesting. The fact that these activities, they must come from the community. I think this is essential in order to achieve our goals, yeah, and achieve this dialogue, this real dialogue. It has to be pure. We cannot be the ones saying or trying to make people participate or somehow direct them, because the potential is there. The thing is in our human beings, it's in. It has to come up from the community. I would like to remark, for example, this methodology of the theater of the oppressed. I think this is a brilliant methodology that we can use with the community. Whoever that wants to give a look about these theories and all of this, you can read about Augusto Boal, who's the Brazilian promoter of this movement. And it is really amazing because it also empowers the community. It's not only the individual, but it creates this sense of community and the multiplier effect. So it's not the activist who has to lead a group of people, but the group of people is that are leading themselves and they are multiplying the effect that it has. And yes, also as PRS was remarking as well, this creation of spaces where we can share, like from the people who are arriving, the newcomers in a community, and this exchange of ideas and experiences. All of this is vital. So yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm apologizing now because as some of you know, I have to leave. I had other compromises now. But thank you all. It was amazing to be here, and I hope I can hear the rest of the panelists in the second hour, maybe on Facebook or if it's posted. But thank you very much.
So it's going to be posted, I mean, for sure. You can see it. But thanks a lot, Monica, for your inputs and also for your follow-up. And we're receiving as well you're receiving some compliments as well through the chats. People are saying excellent work, great examples to you and to Pierres and also to Rafi. But let me perhaps invite Rafi as well for a follow-up. I've seen you as well nodding when she was given the example of the theater of the oppressed. Perhaps you would like to follow up on this or to any other point that Monica or Pierres mentioned, but please in 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. Yes, of course. I was nodding because I've worked a lot with Theatre of the Oppressed, and I know how strong of a tool it is to centralize the dialogue, or to centralize the dialogue in the community, or to make the community the experts of their issues, of their dialogue, of their conversation, and for us as artists or as people who are bringing the project, bringing the idea of Theatre of the Oppressed, to just be a vessel, a channel for them to voice those issues that they are going through. Another thing, of course, another format also in theater would be playback theater, which has a more cathartic approach, but also does the same empowering effect. It does the same weaving of a community effect. It does the same dealing with collective trauma effect as Theatre of the Oppressed can do, or has the potential to do. So I was nodding because that is, I agree, I cannot agree more with her, and about how it is a very strong tool and very important tool, I would say, when you put the community in the center of your work, whether it is education or whether it is dialogue or any kind of work you're doing in a certain community.
Yeah, thank you, Rafi, for your follow-up. Let me invite again Pierres, who might have as well something to say or follow up to what Rafi, Monica, or earlier as well, Ayman. He gave as well really good examples from Tunisia and the impact basically of the initiatives that he'd been involved in on his personal development. Pierres?
I think what I find very striking and very interesting in listening to both Rafi and Monica in particular is that they're both practitioners in the arts. The arts in themselves offer spaces where everybody can be equal and everyone can have a voice. So we are now seeing, for instance, in Ireland, a first generation of asylum seekers beginning to produce their own literature. And I suppose, again, to go back to my main point, those of us who are kind of, professional NGO people or policy people or those kind of people with the big heads who think a lot about things, they need sometimes as well to step aside, because sometimes the NGO sector can be a bridge and sometimes it can be a barrier. It's the kind of people who like to sit on committees, who like to write papers, who like to think about policies. But what's much more important are to hear people's voices. And we need to continue to emphasize that need to find ordinary bridges between ordinary people. Again, music is another example. So we are now seeing projects here in Cork, for instance, where music groups are coming out of direct provision centres and people are organising to get them instruments, to organise concerts. So people go and listen to the music and they get to talk to each other in that way. You don't need kind of big words and big policies. Sometimes the very simplest things are the most effective.
Thank you, Pierres, and thanks to the 4 speakers of the first panel, Ayman from Tunisia, Pierres from Ireland, Monica from Portugal, and Rafi from Lebanon. We've heard really nice and diverse inputs from different experiences, from different angles and different countries. We were reminded on how it is important to come from the reality in some of the artistic work that is being done to promote intercultural exchange. The importance also of the ordinary people, what Pierre has just mentioned, and the small actions that have as well a big impact. We had as well some good concrete examples from Tunisia through Ayman and from Portugal through Monica. So thanks a lot for that. Before moving to our second panel, I would like just to remind our audience that you still can ask us some questions. We're going to be having right after the second panel a Q&A session where some of the panelists will be able to engage with you and to answer your questions. So please do not hesitate to write down your questions either through Zoom, if you're following us on Zoom, or through Facebook comments if you're watching through the Facebook Live. So moving to our second panel, and I would like to invite Loises Lokaides, Andy Rebai, Federico Grandeso, and Professor Carl Donner to join me in this second discussion. I would like to start perhaps from Nicosia, from Cyprus, with Loises. So Loises, you are Director of Association for Historical Dialogue and Research in Cyprus, and you have also extensive experience in the education sector, both as primary school teacher, but also as peace education activist and project coordinator. Maybe you can tell us more, Loises, about the work that you're doing, your organization for peace and intercultural education. And my question to you also, in your view, what are the policies, the approaches that need to be developed to design a Euromed model for intercultural cities?
Thank you very much, Aysam, for the introduction. Thanks to everybody at the Anna Lynn Foundation Network. And hopefully at some point we can meet each other face to face. Hopefully this situation will finish soon and people will be able to see each other, because I think interaction at a more personal level builds bridges and brings people closer to each other, definitely. Now I'm in the buffer zone in Nicosia. I'm at the Home for Cooperation, which is a community center that the organization I work for established back in 2011. As Aysam said, I work for the Association for Historical Dialogue and Research. It is an intercommunal NGO based in Nicosia, Cyprus, and we have been bringing together since 2003 students and teachers from across the existing divide in Cyprus, from the Greek Cypriot community, the Turkish Cypriot community, and all other communities residing on the island of Cyprus. Our work has been mainly focused on historical dialogue and research. However, in the last 7 years, we have expanded our scope to include activities on peace education. And this is actually how we contribute to intercultural dialogue, not only Cyprus, but also abroad, by establishing synergies and platforms between Cyprus and other countries. It is actually one of our main goals to connect always the micro experience of Cyprus to the macro experience of other conflict or post-conflict societies, again, not only in the region, but also in places that might seem very distant from Cyprus, like Colombia, like South Africa. And that's also a suggestion on my behalf regarding your question on what are the best approaches in order to establish a network for intercultural dialogue in the Euromed region. We definitely need to expand our local and regional networks and include people that are not from our region. I want to mention an example of a project, of an initiative that we're implementing in Cyprus in order to also offer some insight into what we have been following in the last few years in order to, at the policy level, in order to expand our network, establish more synergies, and I want to believe become an example in the field of peace education. So for the last 4 years or so, we have been implementing the Imagine project, which is a confidence building measure. It's considered a confidence building measure in the context of the ongoing negotiations for the Cyprus issue. The project has the support of the leaders of the two communities in Cyprus, and what we actually do is to bring together during school hours students and teachers from the two communities, from across the existing divide. We name Imagine a project on peace or anti-racist education, but what we actually do is promote tools, skills, attitudes on how to promote diversity, on how to learn what it's like to live in a society, in a multilingual, multi-faith, multicultural society. So this is how our work connects to the vision and mission also of the Anna Lynn network. So in the last few years, we have brought together more than 5,000 kids and 1,000 teachers together. And what we have been following is an approach that includes everybody, even people who are against us, people who think differently. We have knocked on the doors of people whose ideology is very different from the ones that have traditionally been involved in the peace-building process. Even though there are people we don't agree with, these are the people we have to work with, because not only because usually they have the power, not only in Cyprus, but also in other places, but also because we have to learn how to work with people who are not our friends, people who think differently. And what we used in order to reach out to these people is our network of teachers. Teachers throughout the years and through their experience in schools, in a society like Cyprus, they have developed tools for a quiet and everyday diplomacy. Teachers first need to have an internal struggle in order to overcome barriers and obstacles and engage with the historical other. This has been happening a lot in our project, and teachers went through this process in order to become agents of change. So using this network of teachers, you can reach out to more and more people, educational stakeholders, policymakers, and engage these people in a process that is, and in a platform that is expanding slowly. This is for now. I know I have said enough. You can ask questions, and I'm here.
Perhaps a quick question, if you would like to add perhaps 1 point in 1 minute. I mean, one point that you mentioned as well at the beginning is connecting those micro actions that you're doing in Cyprus to some other macro ones in the Mediterranean, but also beyond. Do you have kind of an example to that and the outcome basically that came from this connection of the micro to the macro?
It's like in Cyprus, we have a quality, not so much a quality, but a characteristic that we call Cypriot exceptionalism. And I'm sure it applies to other conflict societies. We think that our problem is bigger than Lebanon, for example, or Bosnia-Herzegovina, or Ireland. So we're always trying to introduce case studies from other conflict or post-conflict societies, and in order to connect the experience, in order and this is a way to also instill hope to the participants, to understand that what we're facing in Cyprus is part of a larger problem, if you want. That what we're facing in our educational system is something that needs to be seen with an intersectional perspective, with a broader lens that does not only include Cyprus or the relations between the two communities. So when I'm talking about connecting the micro to the macro, is mostly about like using a more holistic, comprehensive approach to conflict, and like connecting this local to the international experience.
Thank you very much, Loises. I think really concrete as well examples, good practices from Cyprus, and it reminded us as well of the importance of working with the people that with which we don't not necessarily as well agree. I think this is as well a good point. So moving now from Cyprus to Albania, or before that, I would like just to welcome Professor Carl Donnert, who joined us now and who's going to be speaking as well in this second panel. So welcome and thanks for joining. So getting back to Albania, to Tirana with Andy Rebiai. Please correct me if I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly, but your executive director.
It's okay. Let's say it's okay.
Okay. So you're executive director of Youth Voice Network of Organizations in Albania, but you're also member of the National Council of Youth Peer Education's network YPeer, and you have contributed to social and legal changes for youth in your country. So my question to you is about this peer education and how it could contribute to the promotion of intercultural dialogue and peace building.
Thank you very much, Aysam. I just want to start my speech with funny things that I heard today. The most common word used during our virtual dialogue is, can you hear me? So can you hear me right now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. As you introduced me, I'm Andy Rebiai. I come from Albania. In fact, my experience is related to peer education for 8 or 9 years now. And today, this is the main topics that I'm going to speak to you and to introduce to you. First of all, I want to express my congratulations to Anna Lynn Foundation. It's my first time being with you, and I'm very impressed and privileged to share our virtual space to such a great panelist. I heard a lot of, I think I have taken some notes because I think that are very important to take into consideration during my work. You have, for sure that you have heard about peer education. Is not a new approach, in fact is an old approach. Used especially for preventing strategies, but I think it can be a new approach for intercultural dialogues. At least in Western Balkan, it is a new approach, and has started to be implemented, has started to be experimented with it. Peer education, as I said, is used for preventing programs in the field of youth health in the beginning of in the 1999, from UNFPA, UNICEF, and WHO. To promote positive behaviors through young people who are skilled and informed by their peers or from professional educators. It is a concept, problem arising, and discussion, a bridge of communication, a methodology, a philosophy, and a strategy. As you can notice, two main components of peer education are peer and education. Education is part of our virtual discussion for today. In fact, peers are individuals that belong to the same social group as another person or group. The social group may be based on age, sex, sexual orientation, occupation, social, economic, temporary situation like humanitarian crisis, health status or other factors. In the other side, education refers to the development of a person's beliefs, knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, because due to the learning process. In this context, peer education is the process when well-trained and motivated young people undertake informal organized education activities with their peers, taking into consideration activism, art activities, or education activities. These activities may occur over an extended period, are aimed at developing young people's knowledge, attitude, beliefs, and skills, and at enabling them to be engaged in different settings, including intercultural dialogue, peace building, and conflict transformation. It was mentioned that the main approach that we can use to promote intercultural dialogue or peace building values is non-formal education together with formal education in and out of school. In this case, peer education is a non-formal learning process that gives empowerment, confidence, and independence to young people, whatever their background. I mentioned and want to stress whatever their background. What dictates their background means all encompassing in terms of ethnicity, culture, belief, hence the link to intercultural diversity. I want just to think for 3 seconds. Cultural diversity project aim to challenge negative views and opinions, stereotypes, and prejudices about ethnicity, culture, beliefs. They help to change attitudes and behaviors towards certain groups of people by working towards creating positive images of those groups and by encouraging other communities members to recognize the value of that group's contribution of different groups that brings to a level of society in different dimensions. So peer education, culture, diversity projects, in fact, have the same aim. This is the link between peer education and culture diversity projects. And in my opinion and experience, I think we need to start in Euromed community organization and intervention to start to try to explore the peer education into intercultural dialogues of peace building, reconciliation, conflict transformation as a good approach and effective approach. I heard something from Professor McCain. We
will at some point, Andy, I will allow at some point for interaction. I mean, you can perhaps react later to that. I have a second question to you.
Okay.
I mean, you mentioned formal, the importance of formal and non-formal education, and the importance to include everyone, whatever background, I mean, including the hard-to-reach communities and the minorities. But I'd like from you, perhaps in 30 seconds or in 1 minute, to give us kind of a good practice in Albania that you think that it could be scaled up or shared for the sustainable development in the Euromed region.
Yeah, First of all, we have worked with peer education since now 10 years in Albania, at least in the personal level, and we have created peer educators clubs in different schools in Albania, and they are work with our support and on collaboration with adult professional educators. They are doing amazing job to promote positive behaviors, peace-building values, etc. On the other side, non-formal education, at least peer education approach, is integrated to National Youth Action Plan as a 5-year strategy in Albania. So for me, it is the biggest sustainable factor that can promote non-formal education among young people, at least young people. The last statement that I wanted to say is the fact that peer education is not only for young people, it's for everybody.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and a good example as well of inclusion, different backgrounds and different as well ages. So thanks a lot for that. Andy, moving to a neighboring country, to Albania, or not that far, I mean to Italy, to a journalist, Federico Grandesso. So Federico, you are journalist and board member of the Fellini Foundation for Cinema. If you could also tell us more about the intercultural dialogue experience you were involved in. And I know as well from your biography that you worked on refugees inclusion. So perhaps you can, kind of give us some more details, some more inputs about what the work that you're doing in Italy.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I would like to thank, first of all, the Lynn Foundation for this occasion to speak today. And yes, we as a Fellini Foundation, we have 15,000 documents about cinema and 10,000 documents about Fellini. We are basically the first and the only one foundation having the heritage of the big maestro. We have this huge heritage, and what we do with this heritage, we also organize exhibitions, master classes, and cinema events. Apart from that, we have also, and what is interesting here, an education program, a very important education program, which is taking place in Sion, Switzerland. It's a city close to Lausanne, between Lausanne and Italy. And in this high school called Lycée de Creuset, we have one of the few cinema and photography program in Switzerland. So we have a laboratory where the students can develop their own photo in the old style. So this means with using very old devices, and also they are developing the photos in a black chamber, basically. So in this moment where everything is digital, I think it's important to keep this tradition open. This is called Atelier du Regard. It's more than 10 years that it's working. And it's important for me that already in the high school, we teach to young students we teach students art and cinema. This is not common. Also in Italy, there are not so many examples about this. So this is already the first step. The second step started in 2017, where we opened the first exhibition, Vision #1, which is an exhibition where the students are interacting with young migrants, underage migrants. So they work together in order to produce photos that are then shown in an exhibition. So you can imagine how important it is, first of all, to make an interaction between students. from different backgrounds. Also in the class in Switzerland, the multicultural panorama is, especially in the last years, is very much diverse. And then those students which has already a very diversified situation and the multicultural situation, they matched with the migrants and they were able to work together and then to make an exhibition together. This was really successful, and this was in 2017. We had another exhibition, Vision 2, in 2019, and this was even more interesting because the students were able to come to another exhibition that we did in the United Nations in Geneva. So they were doing a sort of reportage. They traveled from Sion to Geneva to visit this exhibition. And so they went basically on the field. So it was very interesting. And then we had also again the migrant, the young migrants collaborating with the students and with through a local association, always in Sion. And yeah, it was really a very good and successful project that we would like to continue to organize, also with the help not only by the school and by the associations, but also we want to involve obviously the authorities, the local authorities, which are able to have, I think, a very important role. So we have to create this large interaction. We also had some press articles. So I think it's important, and I'm a journalist, and I have to say that it's important to spread then this initiative. It's totally unuseful to do that if you don't then spread.
Yeah, so this is a good initiative, perhaps to be spread, but to be scaled up. Thank you. Good examples as well. I mean, on Vision 1 and Vision 2, as well, the work with the young migrants in these photos projects, but also working on the arts and cinema education since a young age in the lycées, in the high schools. But my question to you, perhaps in 30 seconds before moving to our fourth panelist, you as a journalist, but also as an artist, as a filmmaker, what are some of the values that you can promote, through arts? I mean, some of the values specifically.
Yeah, obviously, collaborating with this foundation, for sure, we promoted a lot Fellini, which is everybody knows Fellini, and we were able to take out from his filmography something important. So we have to, let's say, take the artist and put on the stage something important. In this case, we organized an exhibition, Fellini and the Human Rights. So we found in Fellini, in his filmography, some elements related to the protection of human rights. So this is something interesting.
I think. Really good. Thanks a lot as well for being short. I mean, for the second point, and it's clear as well to the point, the human rights as well, value, respect as well of human rights. So thanks. We're going to be moving from Italy to Belgium, and we'll have the pleasure to have on board Professor Carl Donnert, who is the president of the European Association of Geographers, Eurogeo, and also consultant to the European Commission, researcher and education specialists. So you're leading basically as well innovative projects, including the use of technologies in teaching, learning, and research and education. This has been as well mentioned by our very first speaker from Tunisia, Ayman. So speaking about the use of digital tools in intercultural education, what are some of the concrete, perhaps, impacts? I'd like to link it to the current pandemic that had the lockdown on the use of the digital tools in both shores of the Mediterranean, both in education, but also in arts.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm really happy to be here. My name's Carl Donnert, and I'm actually connecting in from the UK. My association, Eurogeo, is a Belgian association, and we are members of the Anna Lynn network in Belgium. And for me, I think I'm very happy to be here. I've worked for many years with intercultural dialogue and connecting with the Anna Lynn Foundation. And I think at the moment, we would all agree that digitalization and the digital world has become the dominant social process. In lockdown and with COVID, we've not been able to travel or to meet the way we used to. Digital technology is a disruptive technology. It's actually transforming the way we are, the way we think, the way we act, and the way we believe. And under COVID, I perceive that we are actually changing our habits, and that these habits will continue even after the pandemic. Let's hopefully the pandemic ends and is over, but even after then, I think we're making changes that are almost irreversible. And the impact is due to increase, I think, and is likely to persist in the future. So from my perspective, we need to ensure that education and specifically the work on intercultural dialogue and interculturality is embracing these digital transformations which are taking place. And we need to ensure that education is meeting the needs of society. The second point I want to make is that based on the Ipsos Mori survey, Anna Lynn survey, the impact of digitalization is greater among young people in SEM countries than in European countries. Europeans are much more skeptical, and young Europeans are much more skeptical and wary of information and the technology, especially social media, whereas young people in SEM countries appear to be much heavier users and are less skeptical of this. And that, of course, means that the prevalence of things like fake news and rumors, which are created through digital technologies and spread, can have really severe impact. So it's really important that we embrace this through our education. Intercultural dialogue is an indispensable feature of an inclusive society, and I believe digitalization offers us actually new opportunities to engage more people in intercultural dialogue than previously were being engaged. It offers the platform for people who otherwise would be silent to actually engage and share their opinions, and it offers us more opportunities for social cohesion and democratic engagement. And we've been working on a project in Europe called the Youth Meter Project, where we try to encourage young people to engage in dialogue, and that dialogue includes dialogue with policymakers, encouraging young people to express themselves through digital technologies and the use of open data, open information, to say what they want, what their needs are in terms of policies around young people. And finally, the last point I want to make here at this time is, because society and the digital world is changing, the whole way we operate, we need to clearly identify the types of online spaces that we want to empower people so that they can engage and participate, contribute and collaborate together. And are the spaces that we are using at the moment, like Zoom here today, are they suitable for this sort of collaboration? And I think we need to therefore look carefully at the tools we are using, the digital tools, but also to develop education for digital intercultural dialogue, because this digital intercultural dialogue is really very new, as we're experiencing in the marathon here. It is a transformation effect. So those are really the main issues I wanted to focus on.
Yeah, so I've got a second question to you, Professor Carl Donnert. I mean, you emphasize on the point that digitalization is transforming who we are, our lives, how we think, and you highlighted as well the difference on how young people as well in Europe, but also in southern Eastern Mediterranean are receiving this growing role of digital tools. My question is that in which ways do you think that policymakers can build on the learnings of the use of virtual exchange during the pandemic for a better living together across the Euromed region in the post-COVID-19 era? I mean, we hope that it's going to be ending soon, but after beyond or in post-COVID-19 era, what are the ways that the policymakers can build on those learnings?
Thank you. Yes, that's a big challenge, I think. And for me, the first thing is that we need to understand what is happening. And that means we need to make sure that research is taking place, that people are trying to unpick the challenges. At the moment, a lot of research is taking place on the spread of the pandemic, and we are beginning to understand it. But unless we look at the impact it's having, then I'm not sure we will be able to provide adequate policy. And of course, the Anna Lynn Foundation and the work it's doing is central in terms of focusing on intercultural dialogue. So there's a challenge for the foundation. I think we need to be researching the way digital tools and technologies are being used by young people. What are the tools being used in the different countries? How are they transforming the way young people are interacting with one another? And then maybe we can begin to make suggestions as to the types of tool we need to use. At the moment, the digital world is being encouraged. There's a digital push. The push is coming from the technology, rather than the ways we should be thinking about the ways we want to use it. So who is to say that the digital tools that are being used are actually allow this collaboration? Before coming into this platform today, I had a long meeting today where we were collaborating online using digital tools to interact together, not just by speaking, but also writing, co-creating. And I think if we look at art, and if we look at the work of art, it is possible, and we've seen it with musicians playing together online, with artists, I don't know, drawing and designing together online. I think those are the sorts of experiments that are actually taking place. And many of these are hidden because we don't know about them. And so I would say we should use this opportunity, the fact that the pandemic has forced us to become much more digitally oriented. We should be understanding what's happening. We should be identifying real experimental initiatives and looking to promote those ones that really could transform and engage more people in the dialogue that's necessary.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Carl Donert. Research you highlighted is really important to understand the impact and to find as well the adequate policies. Before getting back to Loises in Cyprus, I would like just to thank again our audience for all the comments that are coming. They are really nice, really important. We're going to be getting back to the questions that you're asking. You still can ask questions to the second panel. We're going to be having this session in a few minutes. But let me first get back to Cyprus, to Loises, who would like perhaps in 1 to 2 minutes to react to some of the points that were highlighted by Andy, Federico, and Professor Donert. Loises?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor once again. This has been amazing. It's been like quite an experience listening to these amazing colleagues, and I got a lot of like insights that I'm gonna bring back to Cyprus. What I'm keeping is the need for sustainability that someone mentioned in the first panel, actually. The need to keep our activities, the need to create follow-ups, to keep our activities going, and do not implement one-off projects for the sake of checking boxes for donors. This is something very important that we all need to have in mind, because sometimes in order to guarantee financial sustainability, we forget about the educational component of sustainability and the continuation of our actions. Another thing that I'm taking is that this thing is a process. We need to keep reinventing and learning again and bringing new insights and research into our work. Especially the ones that we're working on the ground, needs to be informed by research constantly. And this pandemic is quite an opportunity for us to reflect, go back into research and update what we're doing. Of course, it is also an opportunity to try to invent new ways of making people interact at the face-to-face level, because I think some of us forgot, some of us got too accustomed to this online experience that, and it has to do with mental health. We need to invest again energy and resources into bringing people together, and theater, drama, the arts are an amazing platform to do so. And I think we have heard from amazing colleagues today on how to do this, like Theater of the Oppressed, music, sharing music projects online, and so on. And something I want to stress once again is the need to establish synergies, the need to remind ourselves that what we're doing is not reinventing the wheel. Someone has done it before, so it's better to contact that someone and do it together.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Aloysius from Cyprus. Let me get back to Tirana in Albania. Andy, you wanted earlier as well to react to one of the points that have been mentioned. So you have the floor now for 1 to 2 minutes max.
Yeah, and I will keep shortly. In fact, I'm starting from the end, from the professor from Belgium that mentioned the important role of gathering data in order to take decision. In this case, it's important that in Euromed to have some data in an Euromed region, because I think we have the same common issues, suffering from the same common issues, and we need to address it in a block. Is a whole community, not in separate way. And I'm going back to Cyprus now, that the synergy, we need to keep a synergy among us in order to reach more outcomes and to maximize the benefits from the intervention. It's important to take into consideration the fact that not to leave behind people, that marginalized people, vulnerable people, that some of the time, not just to tick the boxes for a project, but to take into consideration that not all the people can be reached from our interventions or from our projects. So let's strengthen our collaboration at community-based level with a member of the community to strengthen them and to give them the right opportunity to be engaged and to promote them. Going back to art and education, I just want for 30 seconds to share an experience from Albania. Before 10 years, we started to work with some young people, part of Art University in Albania. And after 10 years, they now are designing a theater show, theater show, in order to find a solution for social problems and needs in Albanian community. That's all for the moment.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andy, and thanks as well for being on time. We're running a bit out of time, but the discussion, I'm really enjoying it. So I would like to give the maximum to the speakers. And getting back to our journalist and also filmmaker and artist, Federico. Federico, would you like to as well react to the points that Aloysius, Andy, and Professor Donnerts mentioned?
Yeah. For me, I would like to highlight something quite important between education, art, and relation with the migrants. We were studying a lot, also me, a lot of theory. What we did in Switzerland is to pass from theory into practical. So, because we didn't teach cinema and photography in an art high school, but in a general one. So first of all, we have to try to introduce more and more in our national system the study of cinema, art, and photography, and not in a theoretical way so much, because sometimes it's boring and so on, but in a practical way. So we have to send the students to the laboratory, and this is the first occasion where the students, they work together, they mingle, and they can cooperate and create a sort of solidarity, and they work together, they can work together. And the second step obviously is introducing in this context what we did in Switzerland, the migrants. So we really create an environment which is very kaleidoscopic, I would say, and can help really the dialogue since the beginning. So the beginning is the high school, and then obviously what is the result? Because everybody wants concrete result. It's the exhibition. The exhibition is the end of this path of this experience, and it's a very, very important element, because everybody feels like for the first time, especially I saw young people, they were really feeling like they were an artist, like they were an experienced artist, and they were really, from the psychological point of view, very much motivated even to continue a second experience. So if we follow these steps, I think that we will have really a very high value tool that can be applied everywhere.
Yeah, thank you, Federico, and good as well points on the importance of educating young or the youngest people in schools and high schools. Getting back to the UK then, to Professor Carl Donnert, you've heard as well some good practices from Cyprus, from Albania, and from Italy and Switzerland as well. Would you like to follow up, react, engage with some of the points? If yes, so please in 1 to 2 minutes.
Yes, it's a very small world we are living in. Our dear friend from Cyprus, I was in Cyprus involved in a project looking to bring teachers from the north of the island to work with teachers from the south of the island. And I remember seeing the first designs of the house you're sitting in the neutral zone. So there's really, really strong connections. For me, that was one of the most powerful experience I had. And that links into the comments that were just being made by our journalist friend. We have to go out into the world in order to understand it. Digitalization is important to share the messages and the meanings and to encourage collaboration. But we have to be outside in the world if we're going to make sense of it. I'm a geographer, I'm a geography teacher, I'm an academic, but for me, we cannot understand the world unless we experience it. And that is something that our young people have not had for the last 18 months. We've been in lockdown. We've not been able to go out and experience the world. We are missing out on some aspects of it. And so really to make the connections there, first of all, many projects have taken place and they have impacts that we never measure, because in the 10 or 15 years since projects that I've been involved in have developed, nobody has ever taken the time to go back and look at what the impact of the project has been in order to learn the lessons. And that to me is very important. We have to learn the lessons in order to move forward, which is why the fact that the foundation is encouraging research is very important. And secondly, the fact that we have to really understand the world around us, and intercultural dialogue is actually all about understanding the world we live in and the people in the world. And that to me is so fundamental that it has to be almost the #1 priority for our education. And then we need to address the digital perspective, because all the kids are involved in digitalization, and all the kids have access online, because it's really digitalization empowers people, but it can also be quite challenging and to manage and control, as you as the moderator are 100% aware. So for me, those are my connections with the speakers from before.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks a lot. And digital tools, I mean, they can be a really good friend, but they could at some moment, become as well a very bad enemy. So thanks a lot to the second panel, represented by Loises from Cyprus, Andy from Albania, Federico from Italy, and Professor Donard, who joined us from the UK as well. Really important points. I would like to jump in now to some of the questions that have been asked by our lovely audience. To some of the speakers, I'm going to be asking 3 questions, one to panel 1 to Rafi, and second one to panel 2 to Federico. And there is a third question to the Anna Lynn Foundation, so I'm going to be asking it to Ms. Eleonora Insalaco. And let me start perhaps with Rafi. So there's a question for you. It says, how do you perceive apply digital media to widen learning opportunities and reinforce the intercultural communication?
Are you sure this question is for me?
So it says for Rafi, but yeah.
No, it's fine. As a matter of fact, we are just starting to integrate the digital media in our work. We've worked a lot in communities where technology was not very present. Sometimes even electricity is not present. So digital media was not one of our priorities. But with its spread now more and more, with its availability and access and the importance of that tool, we are now starting to integrate it, whether at the level of communication before and after a certain event, let's say, or even as part of a dialogue tool where we plan to gather events or even facilitate meetings like this, especially during COVID. Then it was a necessary tool for us to meet through it and to even train some people through it. And in that respect, it's becoming more and more the centerpiece of our work. As everyone probably knows, and I'm not an expert in that, but I think with how we used digital media during COVID, I think it has changed the way we're going to work even after COVID. Many things that required us to meet in person now do not anymore, because COVID proved to us that it can happen without actually face-to-face meeting. It can cut down on cost, it can cut down on time, it can cut down on so many resources. So more and more, so to speak, admin work is being facilitated by all of this digital media, and then we are keeping all the face-to-face theater or arts-based intervention, we're keeping all that to face-to-face. And afterwards, it also helps in disseminating the work, whether it is through social media or whether it is through connecting with people who we cannot travel to meet. So then it's about sharing the work and distributing it.
Okay, really good examples on the use of digital media. I hope that this fully answers the question from the audience. Second question to Federico in Italy. It says, arts help communication by enabling expression of emotions, as said by a panelist. Is there a limit to freedom of expression in arts production?
I have to say that yeah, this is a very interesting question, but it's very difficult to answer, I would say. With the experience that we had, is that the dialogue that there was in our laboratories, even with the migrants, went quite smooth. So there were not problems related to freedom of expression, or censorship, or debate on topics that were a little bit difficult to treat. So we saw that in our experience, we didn't have this problem. And yeah, we always try to work with the professors, first of all, to make the process smooth, because we know that there could be some challenges. But I would say that at that age, you don't have so much This is our experience. You don't have so much very much political issues that are really relevant during the artwork creation. So
yeah,
from experience, it went well from the beginning to the end. We didn't see so many problems in that specific context. We are talking about a small city of Switzerland, and in the context of probably also a group which was not extremely large, I would say. So we could also manage in a very effective way.
Fantastic. I believe this answers as well the question from your experience and also the experience of the foundation, Fellini Foundation. Thanks, Federico. There is a third question actually to the Anna Lynn Foundation. So perhaps Ms. Eleonora Insalaco could answer it. So it says, is the Anna Lynn Foundation supporting opportunities to develop an educational guide for interactive theaters as an effective educational tool for developing and modifying behavior among young people and unleashing the creative energies in a fair manner?
Thank you, Aysam, and thank you to the person that asked this question. For sure, we are supporting intercultural learning, and for us, it's central also what was said by the colleagues to encourage as much as possible experiential learning and the use of non-formal also methodologies in education and in the formal setting. Therefore, theater, we have experimented, and also we heard also from our experts how important it is in the field of intercultural learning. So I can say that we definitely support, we can support different initiatives. Here there is a specific question on the production of a manual for on theater and theater methodologies. So the way we support the projects is through call for proposals. So this could be the outcome of a Euromed collaboration or a local dialogue initiative that the person can definitely propose to the Anna Lynn Foundation because it's in line with what we are trying to do. So we recognize that this can be a very effective methodology and a manual and resource for intercultural learning. Thank you, Aysam.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eleonora, and I believe as well that this answers the question. Thanks a lot to our audience for your questions, for your comments, as well for your compliments to some of the speakers. I see that Professor Caldoners is raising his hand. I'm going to be giving you the floor in a bit, but let me first just explain what's going to be happening in the next 9 minutes. So we're going to be having Rafi, who will make a couple of takeaways from this discussion, and then I will give the floor to Professor Caldoners. You can as well discuss the point that you would like to raise now and highlight any as well takeaways that you would like to do. And then I'm going to be giving the floor again to the Anna Lynn Foundation for some closing remarks. So let me start from Beirut, Rafi. A rich discussion. We had 8 panelists from 8 different countries. We had as well the perspective of the Anna Lynn Foundation. What are your takeaways today?
First of all, I'm overwhelmed by all of this. It's so much to take in such a very short time. So I'm very happy to be here, and very my brain is going, so I'm extremely happy about that. My first and most important takeaway is something that I think is very important, but it's very difficult to see or to see and touch. And it was very nice for me to touch it in this dialogue today, which is the interdisciplinarity that is needed for dialogue and for education. Even arts and education can have multiple disciplines, and all these disciplines should come together in order for it to really work, and in order for it to actually have an impact, or for it to be really useful. So we can say art for education, and we can talk about it for forever, but unless we know and we are aware about how important it is for it to have multi-disciplines coming together for it to work, then it will not work. So this is the first thing I noticed, and I was very happy about. The second thing was, I'm very happy to see how there are so many organizations across the whole Euromed region coming together as well for the normalization of art and education. You know, for me, for my generation growing up, having art in education was an extra thing that we only found in private schools and private universities, and all of these maybe rich people had access to. Seeing it that now it is something normal, that it is something that it should be everywhere for all people, for all communities, makes my heart dance. You know, it's very, and it makes me feel that we are on the right track for us to this work.
Sorry, Rafi, for interrupting, but you still have around 20 to 30 seconds, please.
Okay, and I'm going to speak much faster, and if you don't understand me, it's speak to Aysam, I don't care. So, no, the last thing I just want to say is that the last thing I want to take with me is a personal message where I need to, a personal agenda where I need to be aware that all of this work in the Euromed region is available, and for me to be aware that we should find ways to synergize on all of this. We cannot be islands working each other in our countries alone and trying to make change alone, when we can come together and make this impact much stronger and much faster and much bigger.
Thank you very much, Rafi, but we have to jump into an island to the UK. So Professor Carl Donner, please, in 2 minutes, what are your takeaways? And I know that you have as well a point that you wanted to raise.
Yeah, I want to just say three things very quickly. First of all, in education, we need to make sure we are dealing with both formal and non-formal education. They are equally as important, and that means the type of education is very, very varied. I think the non-formal education has not had the concentration or the funding compared to formal education and ministry approved and whatever. The second thing I want to comment on is the point that was made on experiential. I think the whole experience, as I said earlier, about understanding the world and the people in it, that experiential has to be at the center of the work that we do. And then finally, just to comment on the community perspective, the one thing that I think is missing is that we don't have the chance to come together and share more often. And the whole perspective of networks and networking does not function effectively. And with the digital tools, we ought to be able to do it. We ought to be able to network better, to share the lessons that we learn, the good things that happen, and the difficulties we face. And so I would urge, therefore, also Anna Lynn to think about what networking projects could it do, and just networking within countries is not satisfactory, I think, because Anna Lynn is run through networks of national NGOs. And I think the way we network needs to be seriously reviewed and looked at if we're going to learn lessons across frontiers. And that's what intercultural dialogue is about. It's about learning lessons across frontiers, whether they be social, economic, cultural, or physical, geographical frontiers. So for me, the last point that was made by the previous speaker about networking is absolutely fundamental, and to the building also of the community as well.
Thank you very much, Professor Donner. I would like to give the floor now to the organizer of the virtual marathon and also the today's dialogue, the Anna Lynn Foundation, through its representative for the closing remarks. Please, Ms. Eleonora Insalaco.
Thank you, Aysam. Today very challenging, but somehow also the previous speakers helped a lot. What can I add? Because I would like to build also on what Carl was saying, but from a more positive perspective when speaking about community or networking, because it is true that we need to think also of new models and more engaging models at the international level. However, we heard also from previous speakers about the good experiences that exist. So when we speak about intercultural dialogue, we are dealing with identities, emotions, fears, attitudes, behaviors, and often the outcomes, as Monica also was saying, are not tangible but more intangible and in the long run. So this has to be taken into consideration, and from the discussion it emerged today that art is a very powerful tool to work at this level of people's behaviors, attitudes, and can be a tool also for community dialogue. So for sure, there is not a perfect model to just be scaled up, but exists. We can say that we have pockets of change and good practices all around the region that are happening on a daily basis. We heard about the importance of food, for example, in Ireland, or music. We heard about the art galleries as spaces for encounter between children that are from migrant background and children from the host community. So art can be a powerful tool. Of course, it's not everything or the only thing art, but can be a good way for expression. And intercultural dialogue, first of all, it is about allowing people to feel safe and to find the ways for them to express themselves, so that other people can also understand how similar we all are and how we are connected. So I think that the debate told us that we need to start working on this from a young age. Therefore, the importance of education, formal, non-formal, the importance of a interdisciplinary approach, as also Rafi was stressing, underlining just now. And then I would like to say we needed to focus, as also Professor Donert was saying, on the opportunities of the digital technologies, but I really buy into what he said and invited us before to do, that is to look at a critical eye to digital technologies, because so far it has been really technical and companies and the industry that has led the need. So we need to really work and research what the need is to identify the most suitable tool also in the digital world. So to become really aware of the needs rather than being pushed by other interests and then buying into these induced needs. So thank you, Aysam. I finish here, but there would be so much more to say. It was very rich, the discussion today. Thank you to everybody.
Indeed, the discussion was really rich and really good points that have been highlighted by Eleonora. Thanks a lot for that, and also by our panelists. So I'd like to thank, number one, our panelists. We had Ayman Bouazizi from Tunisia, Dr. Pierres McHenry from Ireland, Monica Salas Corrigan from Portugal, Rafi Ferali from Lebanon, Loitzes Lokaides from Cyprus, Andy Rebiai from Albania, Federico Grandeso from Italy, and Professor Carl Donner, who joined us from the UK. Thanks a lot for your contributions, for the rich dialogue and discussion. Thanks also to our audience for your engagement, for your comments, for your questions. That was as well really important to the process, engaging as well with our panelists. I would like just to remind everyone that there is a report in the format of a policy recommendation and a short video that will be made available and sent to all the participants, and could be also found on Facebook, on the Anna Lindh Foundation Facebook page. This is the first information. The second one, you will see a pop-up window right now, which is a polling questionnaire to measure your satisfaction basically with today's dialogue. So I hope Modestus will soon. Yeah, exactly. So this one, if you could just take 10 seconds perhaps to answer your question. Are you happy with this public dialogue? The people who are joining us, the panelists and people joining us as well on Zoom. This will give us and give the Anna Lindh Foundation as well a taste on how this dialogue went and try to improve it. But you will receive, the panelists and the people who joined us as well via Zoom, an email with a similar as well survey. Perhaps it takes a few minutes. We would highly appreciate and be thankful if you could dedicate 2 or 3 minutes to fill it in, because this will help us and help the Anna Lindh Foundation to improve this dialogue for the upcoming ones. Before concluding, just a reminder that we are halfway, as I mentioned at the very beginning. This is the 4th public dialogue that we're having in the framework of the virtual marathon of the Anna Lindh Foundation. As Eleonora at the very beginning mentioned, there is a rich program that you can follow, that you can join as well some of the sessions that are accessible, and you can contribute to them or participate or watch them. So you can just check the Facebook page or the website as well of the Anna Lindh Foundation for the programming for the upcoming days. And a kind reminder that the upcoming public dialogues will take place on the 15th of June, 23rd of June, and 29th of June. So we still have 3 public dialogue. So we hope that we're going to be having you as well again there, our lovely audience contributing as well to the discussion and engaging with our panelists. So thanks again to everyone, and I hope to see you again soon, hopefully on the 15th of June in the next public dialogue. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.